Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another ranked ladder game. This time around, I take you to Hill and Dale, where we have LucifroN facing off against LasH. To the north, it is LasH playing as the English in green. And to the south, we have LucifroN playing as the Holy Roman Empire in yellow. Right from the beginning, we do have a barracks coming up here for LasH. A lot of times we see the English player playing aggressive in Dark Age against the HRE. And here, your goal is not to kill villagers. It's near impossible to accomplish that at the highest level, because you always have the prelate to heal up the villagers with. Your goal is to harass this gold mine, to push away the enemy villagers from the gold, possibly even harass the deer stack, prevent the enemy scout from pushing it in, kill the deer right where it is, and in general just govern the timings of the HRE. HRE is one of the most timing-dependent civilizations in the entire game. It's a civ that lives and dies with a fast castle, Ragnitz Cathedral, sometimes Burgrave Palace. If you can throw off their timings by pushing villagers away from the gold mine, if you can force them to defend this gold mine with something in feudal age, you will slow down their castle age, and that will be something that's detrimental to the HRE. First man-at-arms now crossing the map over here. This is not a good gold mine to aggress against. This is so far away from the opposing player, LasH. It takes a lot of time for this man-at-arms to arrive. And you see that LucifroN, he will have the gold he needs for feudal age, so he won't have any issues with this. Now, cleaning up that man-at-arms is a bit of an annoyance for LucifroN when playing with the HRE. Best unit that he can make against it would be horsemen. Archers won't do much over here. He could technically play into his own men-at-arms, but men-at-arms are pricey, and they're also of low mobility. So for LasH, if he can force his opponent to make men-at-arms, that's actually a good deal for the English here, at least in the initial stages of feudal age. Now, the reason why horsemen would be valuable, as you see now, with the men-at-arms having pushed away the villagers from the gold, it will just take out the deer, prevent the deer from being pushed into the TC or the Aachen Chapel. So, when you look at the stable option for LucifroN, horsemen don't do particularly well against the men-at-arms either. But first of all, you can pull away injured horsemen, you can heal them up with the prelate. And more importantly, horsemen will give you mobility once you clean up this men-at-arms. That can help you counterattack, that can help you harass the English villagers here on the gold. Oh, LasH is actually out of sheep under the town center. That is annoying. Happens a lot when you only have one scout and when you're actively scouting the enemy base as well, but this is something that's going to slow down his feudal age so badly. Needs to detach the sheep as well. So when you look at the horseman option for the HRE, oh, that's ugly. That's very ugly for LasH. He got distracted by the lack of sheep, and now he runs into the TC fire. When you have a Dark Age man-at-arms, the most important thing on the planet is not to run into the enemy TC. A single volley takes out most of your HP, and now this is an easy cleanup. It is no longer challenging for any unit to clean up this one man-at-arms, and this is a big difference. A full HP man-at-arms is challenging to clean up. A damaged one is a pretty easy cleanup, and now it looks like LasH is just going to lose that man-at-arms out there. I don't think he's gotten much value out of this. He's been beaten to feudal age. He's just now going up with the council hall. I feel like having that man-at-arms out here, just establishing presence towards that gold mine, it would have been so much more valuable for LasH. Especially when you look at the map, by the way. On Hill and Dale, you only have one gold mine to work with. So if LasH is shutting down this gold mine with a man-at-arms, that basically means that LucifroN would have to go all the way out here to get gold. Or, alternatively, clean up the man-at-arms. LucifroN, though, opting not to go for fast castle. He is going to play into a second TC. I don't think this stone mine was scouted, or at least the fact that it is being mined. I don't think that was scouted by LasH. So he might not know about the second TC coming up just yet. And it looks like that also means that we won't have any stables. Just for a brief moment, back to the stable thought as a response to the men-at-arms. The other reason why it would have been so useful is because you anticipate longbows coming in from the council hall, so if you have a couple of horsemen prepared, that's always going to be welcome. LasH is not really using any of the hunt over here back at home. He's just on a sheep. Down center will get a volley out on the scout of Luciferon. Needs to be cautious not to lose it. That's the only scout. And now LasH is going to get vision on the second down center. Now he knows that he's up against 2. And this is going to be very difficult to punish. First of all, his feudal age time is delayed because he played into the Dark Age Rush. And as much as you can harass these down centers, destroying them is a nightmare. Emergency repairs is so valuable in feudal age. And part of the reason why the 2TC meta, I'm not going to call it meta actually, it's not something that's super common, but Luciferon is actually the player who started doing this back like a year ago. The reason why the HRE 2TC build works so well is because it's very difficult to punish these DCs, given that emergency repairs is available. Bit of a dance back and forth here with the villagers. One scout trying to shut down these walls. Luciferon doesn't have his own scout back at home, but it looks like he will be able to get some sort of walls up over here. It's kind of chaotic, but at least he's going to just prevent these longbows from moving in. LasH is trying to stop this. Ah, Luciferon though with the bait. You see the scout moved up to the second layer, and now the villagers are pulled to the first layer. And this means that the walls will be completed before the longbowmen arrive. The villager here is idle, but the walls are complete, and the longbowmen will not get in. Nice low walls over here on the north as well. Just make sure that you cannot really run around the base with longbows. This is a key thing because, as I said, punishing the TC itself is very difficult. Punishing the villagers working around it is much easier with longbows, especially when you can hit this gold mine. Don't forget, this gold mine, also the hunt over here to the south, it's kind of exposed once you break through these walls. That's why Luciferon is dropping a tower here. It's a clever tower. And he knows fully well that it takes a lot of time for LasH to get through these walls. So the goal here is simple. Get this tower up. That should reach the villager, or the scout actually. You garrison the vills, jump into the tower, focus down the scout, and that should prevent the torches from being thrown. And then the longbows cannot get through the walls. Even if they do, you will have a defensive tower here. A couple of villagers got picked over here, but that's no big deal for Luciferon. He does have a villager lead. Tower is up. Nice reaction from LasH. He's going to try and get to this low corner where the tower cannot reach him and still try to torch his way through. Response from Luciferon will be some walls here. Once again, idea is that you want to prevent the longbows from running past the tower, and arrow slits will also come in. Now, arrow slits does give you an extra range as well, but more importantly, it means that you do not have to garrison the villagers anymore to get the firepower. And there is the extra range as well coming in clutch. Scout goes down. Longbows will not get in. LasH is in a tough spot right now. He is kind of stuck in feudal age, although at the pace he's collecting resources, he could be in castle in about a minute. But he's being very heavily outplayed when it comes to the eco numbers. He's down by 10 vills. He's also playing against the HRE bonus. He does have his farming bonus, but that is incremental over the course of the game. It's not so massive in feudal, whereas obviously the HRE buff is massive here in feudal already. And he cannot really break in with these longbows. So for LasH, in this scenario, the most reasonable way to play this would be to get to Castle Age, get the King's Palace up. King's Palace will give you that second town center, so at least you can keep pace in terms of villagers, and then go for the relics. That's probably the best way to play this. Here come the horsemen, and not a single spearman is to be found from LasH. Horsemen, just 2 of them plus a scout, should be able to punish this one nicely. First villager goes down. I don't know where this villager was going. There's no opportunity to chop through. Maybe for a forward barracks or something to support these guys with spears. Oh, he was going out for the relic walls. Anyway, villagers will be fighting back against the horsemen. They do quite a bit of a damage, but as long as they're firing arrows, they're not working. I had a game cast just a couple of minutes ago. You probably see them a couple of days apart, maybe even weeks apart. I don't know the schedule at which I'm popping those out. But in that game, I highlighted that the amount of villagers on gold in feudal is indicative of someone's intention to get to Castle Age. Luciferon should know, based on the amount of gold miners, that LasH wants to go to Castle. In the middle, we do have the longbows cleaned up by the horsemen. Archers are also being mixed in by Luciferon. But this was pretty much all the work done by the horsemen. Defensive tower now coming in. That should protect the gold mine, but you see, all the pressure that has been focused towards that gold mine is slowing down LasH very badly. He needs that gold for Castle Age, and every second he delays, he's falling behind in eco more and more. So much so that now Luciferon could beat him to Castle Age. And in this setup, I think you go with the Burgrave Palace. It's gonna be a Regnitz Cathedral. Interesting choice by Luciferon. I'm not against it. Both landmarks work over here. Regnitz is more of a long-term planning for Luciferon. He wants to go for the relics, he wants to go for the late game. Or when I say late game, I do mean, let's say, 20 minutes and onwards. If he went for the Burgrave, he could have actually facilitated a decent man-at-arms push because he does have a good food eco. The big limitation when you have a Burgrave is that you usually do not have a strong enough eco to mass-produce units for an extended period of time. But when you play 2 TCs, when you already have 60 vills and an established farming eco, you can actually afford to use the Burgrave as well. Anyway, relics have slowly been walled in, but there are some horsemen out there to torch down the walls with, as LasH is going to reach Castle Age as well with the King's Palace. Again, the issue persists. For LasH to work around that eco deficit, what he probably would have needed is a better Castle Age timing, yoinking all the relics, and then maybe playing into a very long game, maybe even trying to rush Imperial, get the enclosure stacking, get the maximum out of that farming bonus. But it's a tricky choice. He played an aggressive strategy with the English, and he didn't really punish his opponent with it. One of the key things to understand in RTS games is that when you make army, you need to use it. You need to get value out of it. And he simply wasn't able to, because Luciferon's defense here was very well executed. There is a monastery coming up for LasH. Relics at this point are mandatory. Not just to deny it from the HRE player, but it's a tool that helps you cut into that eco deficit. I would love to see some walls, by the way, from LasH. There's a little option over here, just to wall this part. Also secures this back area for you. Could also wall here to the forest, actually. I don't even understand why he didn't do that, actually. He could have walled like this, and then walled this, instead of just walling around the relic. Remember, he's facing some horsemen, he's facing some knights. So, some walls would be very much welcome. Otherwise, he's going to start getting some raids into his base. And once that happens, he's going to struggle to catch up with the slow-moving army he has. Here come the knights. Army numbers looking better for Luciferon. Population in general is looking better for him as well. Double barracks, triple barracks actually for LasH here. He is playing into veteran spearman. He's also getting some of the farming techs. That's actually a big difference between the two players. We've got some decent techs in for LasH when it comes to the eco. Not so much for Luciferon. Luciferon is just now grabbing some of those eco techs, including wheelbarrow. Luciferon does have a well set up farming eco, by the way, which also means that if he wanted to, he could start working towards Imperial Age. And if he gets there, he could just use the Pass of Schwabia to get to like 120 villagers and then finish the game with mass production of army. But when you see a 2TC build from HRE, it's actually more common that they stay in Castle Age a little longer, secure the relics, and then play into Imperial with the Ausbach Palace. An Ausbach here would be immensely valuable. It secures the sacred site, it secures the gold mine, creates a strong point in the middle of the map that's very difficult to push into. Relic situation, right now 1 for Luciferon. I actually missed this. I'm talking a lot about the strategy choices over here. But I don't think that the Prelate was sniped over here. I think the Prelate just dropped it off close to the tower. May have been a misclick, or may have just been the fact that he wanted to get the relics as fast as possible. So he just drops it off at the border and then goes for the next one. Anyway, one being taken over here by LasH, but he's down by 24 vills. He's got a good farming eco setup now, so that's definitely something that will help him eventually. But you see, right now, 800 food per minute, 700 actually, against 1100. That English farming eco is yet to really kick in. You need Imperial Age, you need the food techs, and you also need more farms. Now the Knights will be committing. There are some longbows, but not a single crossbowman to be found. A lot of premium units out here for Luciferon. His army value is so much higher. 6,000 against 1,600 only. Double the army numbers as well. Luciferon realizes that he's got a window over here. He will commit against the spearmen. Now jumping on the longbows as well. And he is going to clean this up. This is the only gold mine that LasH has access to. And now it is being denied of him. Feels like this is just the beginning of the end here for LasH. And indeed, he will tap out of this one. Luciferon secures this game, playing off a very strong HRE eco, partly fueled by that early defense that he had that prevented these longbows from doing any damage. So when you look back at this game, the key difference between the two players is investment into army versus investment into the eco at the beginning. LasH opted to go for quite a bit of an investment on the army department, went for Dark Age men-at-arms, went for longbows, but neither of them have managed to slow down or impact Luciferon in any major way. Because of that, Luciferon was able to go on 2 TCs, and there was just no way for LasH to cut into that eco deficit that built up over time. Anyway, that was the end of this ranked game. If you enjoyed, I greatly appreciate if you throw a like to the video, if you subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. These metrics are immensely valuable for sponsorships, for opportunities. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the